Being invisible helped him survive in school, and then when the war comes, it helps him survive in the war. And what he's going to learn, of course, in the book is that if he wants help, if he wants his family to find safety and freedom, he might have to become visible again. And so I try to figure out all that stuff about a character before we meet them on the page, so that as they grow and change in the book, they become a new person.
Do you include all of the details that you would write out in a sketch of who your character is going to be? Do you include all of those things in a book? Or do some of them you just kind of let
No, some of them don't make it in. And so I'll know a lot more about a character that you don't see on the page. But for me, that helps that character become real, so that when I'm writing about them, they have a life off the page as well as one on the page.
Right. Did you know that children make up more than half of the refugee population? That means 25.4 million kids under the age of 18. That's a fact according to the United Nations. Author Alan Gratz has introduced the word refugee, immigrant, and emigre to his stories. But what do they really mean? We'll find out in a moment with a little help from our key readers. On our return, we'll open the phone lines, but for now, it's time for Word Bank.
Merriam-Webster Dictionary says that refugee is a noun. Refugee in Spanish.
Bookstore, and you see all those black and white and red books, you know, oh, if I liked one of those books by that guy, I bet I'll like the rest of them, and I hope you do.
It's almost like a brand.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
These colors.
Yeah, and all the books that I wrote at the beginning of my career, they had different kinds of covers on them. But these, because they've all been sort of a kind of kids in danger doing heroic stuff, they kind of fit together.
So we have another question. This is an email question. It's from Anthony from Old Creek Elementary School, and he had a lot of questions, so we narrowed it down to this one. Tell us about your research process for refugee, please.
Sure, I like the please at the end.
That's
very polite. So I had to do a lot of research for this book because it's, like I said, about 3 different communities, 3 different cultures, 3 different kids from different places that I have never been to. And so I had to, and the research was different for each one. For the first story in Refugee, for Joseph's story, I could go to books. That story happened in 1939, and there have been many books written about it.
It's a lot of documentation.
So I could check out a bunch of books from the library, and I could do a lot of research there. For the second story, for Isabel's story, that happened in the 1990s. That is older than a lot of the kids who are reading it, but it's still in our lifetimes.
Right.
So there have been some books written about that, but there's more magazine articles and newspaper articles and interviews
personal
done with people.
Narratives,
personal narratives, right? So I would go back and find those personal narratives of people to tell me what happened. And then for Mahmoud's story, so that one is happening right now. And so for that, there are no books. And so I was having to rely on the reporting that people are doing. There's been amazing reporting done by journalists in America and in the United Kingdom and in the Middle East, all people following these refugees on their journeys and documenting them. And so that I definitely got some primary sources from that, from interviews with people who had been on those journeys.
Wow.
So the research process was a little different for each one and very involved for me. For the last story, for Mahmoud's, there was a website I found where you could slide a tracker back and forth and see where the different factions in the country were at different times, and I was able to pull it back to the very day that they were forced to leave their homes to see what Syria would have been like on that very day. It's been amazing.
So we have another call.
Oh, yes.
This one is from Cameron. Cameron, what is your question for Alan Gratz?
Are any of your characters inspired by people you know or have inspired you? If so, who and which character?
I love the question, thank you.
Yeah.
So prisoner B3087 was definitely inspired by a real person. That's based on the true story of a guy named Jack Gruner, who as a kid survived 10 Nazi concentration camps during World War II. That's the only person that I've written about whose story is there on the page, whose real story is there on the page.